Alright boys, it's time to send this old girl to the gulag. What's going on everybody? Good to see you again. So today we're going to be tackling another issue on this old girl. So as you guys saw in the last video with her, we do have a little bit of an issue with the CD player. Pretty much at this point I could go ahead and replace the gear that's actually stripped or replace the whole radio assembly. Pretty much, I don't see any way of actually getting the gear that I need, and I don't really feel comfortable taking it all apart and putting it back together because I really don't have any reference material on it. So because of those two factors, I'm pretty much deciding against using a factory radio. So I decided to go out and buy an aftermarket one. I bought a double-din touchscreen. I bought one of these little guys. It's a little double-din touchscreen. It's the cheapest one I could find on Amazon, and when I say cheap, I mean cheap. This thing was $45 for a double-din touchscreen, which is absolutely bonkers. Because some of the ones that I was looking at were like 500, 600 bucks. I do plan on going with something more expensive, but just for shits and giggles, might as well try the cheap one, right? I mean, what if this ends up being just as good? So let's get into installing this, and I'll let you guys know how good this actually ends up being. So we'll see. Alright, so to actually get the installation of this done, you are going to need a little bit more than just the radio itself. So you're going to need a dash kit to actually get it to fit your dash. This is specific to the IS300. And it is a double-din dash kit. Then for the 2002 to 2005s, you're going to need this. Pretty much what this is for is to fool the factory amplifier into turning on. Now, I'll show you guys why that's important in just a second. Then we have the head unit itself, which is, of course, the cheapest one that I could find. Honestly, pretty much everything to install this is probably about $100 total. I am going to be using some heat shrink and some crimp connections, but I'll show you guys that later. As far as tools for the IS300 specifically, you're going to need a 10 mil either on a ratchet or on a gun. Either way, you need a Phillips screwdriver. I'm going to use some crimpers, wire strippers, and something to get the heat shrink shrunk. So I'm going to have Amazon links to pretty much everything that I'm going to be using in this video in the description. So now that we have everything set aside, I'm going to go ahead and show you pretty much everything that we have to wire and why we need stuff like this. Alright, so let's talk wiring. So pretty much throughout this, I'm going to show you guys what we're going to need to do to wire this in, because on the IS300 it gets a little convoluted. So if you guys can see, right here we've got the basic wiring diagram of the entire radio system. Right here we have the amplifier, we've got the OEM radio, the antenna, and the fuses. So pretty much what we're going to need to do is figure out what inputs we're going to need for the new radio, what outputs we're going to need from the radio to the amplifier, and figure out how to make them talk to each other. This head unit pretty much only has power, accessory power, and ground coming to it. So those are the wires that we're going to tap into to make sure that we can turn our new radio on. Now, it's also got a mute wire, left and right positive and negative speaker wires going to the amplifier, and then a signal ground that just makes sure that it doesn't have any noise in the signal. But if you guys notice right over here, we have a TX plus and TX minus. Now that's pretty much a communication line, and what that means is that these two wires are actually, instead of just sending regular voltage, they're sending a signal that's like switched on and off super fast, and that's actually what's telling the amp to turn on, to turn the music up, to adjust the fade and the balance and all that kind of stuff. All of that is controlled in the amplifier, not the head unit. Now that is actually what makes our job a little bit more difficult on the IS300. If you had a factory amplifier that was just like a simple 12 volts on, 0 volts off, then we wouldn't have to worry about this, but that's not the case on the IS300. Pretty much since all of the sounds in the car are controlled by those communication lines, that's the reason that we need to have that little box to turn on the amplifier, to be able to adjust the amplifier settings and all that kind of stuff. That box is pretty much sending out the signal that the head unit would be sending out, and since we have an aftermarket head unit, it's not going to be sending any sort of signal out like that. So pretty much what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take all 4 of the speaker outputs from the new head unit, wire them into the box, and that's going to split them up into pretty much 2 a left and a right signal to send to the amplifier. So the box is also going to be acting as a line output converter, because the signals that we're going to be outputting from the radio are actually speaker level signals when we actually need line level signals to go into the amplifier. So we're going to switch them all to preamp signals with that box that's going to act as a line output converter. And also it's going to be taking care of all of our communication, making sure that we can still turn the music up, turn the music down, adjust the fade and balance. So you're going to be able to have all of that stock functionality even with the aftermarket radio. Now, the way that that box works is it's pretty much going to just be right in between the radio and the amplifier, and it's all just going to plug in. So we won't actually have to do any wiring on the car. We won't have to tap into anything or do anything like that. So that's super nice, because if we ever do decide to go back to a stock radio, all we got to do is unplug the harness and plug the radio in. But that's about all we need to know. So let me know if you guys still have any questions about this. I know it is kind of like a quick rundown of what we're doing, but it's really kind of simple, guys. I mean, it's not too much to it. We just got power, ground, speaker wires, and a few other things to plug in, and we're good. The harness pretty much takes care of everything. And the instructions included are super, super detailed, so you shouldn't have any issues, but if you do, just let me know. Alright, now that you guys understand what we're going to be doing, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and rip the old radio out of the dash just so that we have a clean slate to work on. So I'm probably going to actually assemble the wiring off car just to make sure that it's nice and easy to access everything. And then we'll go ahead and throw it in and see if it all works. Alright, so old radio's out. We can go ahead and get to work. So we'll go ahead and check out what comes with the new radio. We've got harness stuff. It even comes with electrical tape. We'll just go ahead and throw that shit out. We don't need that shit. This one for $45 actually comes with a backup camera. I don't know if I'm going to be putting it in just yet, but we'll see. So then in the box, we got brackets and the good old $45 head units. So as you can see, it is a mechless design, so it's pretty small. I don't know how to feel about it. It's very light. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's very light, and it kind of doesn't really feel like it's gonna be good. But I mean, we'll see. I kind of don't like how this USB cover fits in there. It's a little wonky, but I mean, $45 radio. I don't know what else to expect. All right, so now we'll get the dash kit. This is a Skosh. It was pretty much the best reviewed one that I could find. So it comes with a pocket for if you're going to be using it with a single DIN setup. This is a double DIN radio, so I'm not actually going to need this, but there is some hardware in here that I'm going to grab. So that'll go to the bin. Oh yeah, nice. So that is going to go ahead and replace the faceplate on the factory radio, and it looks like it honestly, the finish on it is pretty close to the factory finish. It's not perfect, but it'll do. It'll do. And then of course, side brackets, this is what the radio is actually going to bolt onto. Alright, now for the last and most important piece. This guy is a little unit that's actually going to trick the factory amplifier to turn on. If you didn't have this, there's actually no way of doing it. So this is pretty much providing the TX plus and TX minus signal to the amplifier, telling it to turn on, telling it to turn the music up, turn the music down, change the fade and balance and all that kind of stuff. So this is very important. If you don't have this, you're going to have to bypass your factory amplifier, and I don't really want to do that at this point. Then comes with harnesses for it. I'm pretty sure that these are speaker wire harnesses, and this will be the one that actually plugs into the car. So those are the harnesses that we're going to be needing to put together. So this is pretty much going to be your power, ground, key on, and all that kind of stuff. These are going to be speaker wires going into the box, speaker wires coming out of the head unit, and this is going to supply the head unit with all the power and grounds and everything that we need. So let's get to wiring. Alright, so before I show you guys actually what we're going to be doing with the wiring, I want to show you guys how we're going to be doing it. So pretty much what I've seen a lot of people do is take these wires that are already pre-stripped, they peel away the actual sheathing of it, take the other side of it, twist those guys together, and tape it. Now you see that? That is absolutely not acceptable for any sort of wire repair or installation in my book. So this twisted and taped can lead to water intrusion if any sort of water gets into there, and it's just not a very strong connection. Pretty much you could pull this apart with almost no force. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Honestly, you could be using a wire splice, but I still don't like those unless you use a very specific type. So pretty much the only type of wire splice that I personally use is the type that has its own heat shrink already installed on it, because then you can pretty much crimp it and get it heat shrunk and it looks amazing. However, if you don't get those, you could use the normal AutoZone ones, but honestly, you could go to Home Depot and buy the nice heat shrink ones. That's not what I'm going to be doing, however. This is honestly the cleanest way that I think you could do it. A lot of people do argue that soldering is better, but I don't really like soldering in automotive applications because pretty much putting so much heat makes the wires kind of brittle, and any sort of vibration over time can cause them to break. Also, if you don't know how to solder properly, it is going to cause issues. So I'd rather just go with something a little bit easier, which is what I'm going to be doing, and it's going to look a lot cleaner at the end. And so pretty much what we're going to be using are these little crimp guys, right? So this right here is the specific one that we're going to be using. I'll pull one out so you guys can see. So it's pretty much a little piece of brass that's got two different sections to crimp onto wire. Now those are going to hold onto the wire extremely well, and they're going to make sure that you have a good connection. And it's going to end up having the wire be pretty much the same diameter as it was before you added the crimp on there. So these are my favorite way of doing this. Now a lot of people think that crimping is too far out of the normal DIYer's reach, but honestly, these crimpers are $12 on Amazon. There's literally no reason that you can't have high quality wiring on any car that you are working on. So what we're gonna start out by doing is, if you guys can see right here, I'm placing the wire so that it is right where this first crimp is gonna be, in the center. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my crimpers, get it into the right slot. Alright, so just like that, we've got pretty much the perfect crimp. Now I'm going to go ahead and crimp out where the crimp is actually going to hold onto the sheathing, and then we'll have one half of this completed. That is exactly what we're looking for. And this is completely tight. Like that's going to break a wire before it breaks that crimp. So I'm going to go ahead and start figuring out which wires I need to crimp, and we'll get working on this harness and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Alright, so now that I've got a few of them crimped, I can go ahead and slip the heat shrink up and make sure that the crimp is right about in the middle of the heat shrink. We'll go ahead and take the lighter and shrink that on up. Now the type of heat shrink that I'm using is dual walled adhesive lined. So as it shrinks, fuck you, dude. Lol. Of course my lighter would pick now to run out of butane. But you guys can see right about there, there's a little bit of schmoo coming out of there. That's the adhesive lining inside of this heat shrink. That's going to make sure that no water can get into this. And that's why doing it this way is pretty much the best way to do this, because this is strong, it's never going to break, and it's nice and waterproof. So this is the only way to do it. Let me finish shrinking this up and I'll show you exactly what it's going to look like once it's done. Alright, so that is what the crimps should look like once they are fully heat shrunk and everything. That's nice. So these are going to be speaker wires that I'm wiring in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of them and we'll be halfway pretty much to installing the radio. Alright, so now that I've finished wiring up all of the actual speaker wires, I've ran into an issue. Now, the problem is that with this setup, I need this to go to an amp turn-on wire. Now, usually that is an output coming out of the head unit. Now, you can see on the details of this head unit, it does show right about there. Number 11 is for a power antenna or an amp turn-on wire. However, it's supposed to be a blue wire in pin location 11. Now, pin location 11 is going to be between that white wire and the red wire. There is no blue wire there. So this wiring harness doesn't actually have enough wires to be able to wire the radio completely in. Now, luckily it does have this white wire, which is labeled as key, and the actual thing says that it's a steering wheel control line. So technically the white wire is only there to make sure that the steering wheel controls work. Now, this car doesn't have any steering wheel controls, so I'm going to be able to take this pin out and replace it with the amp turn-on wire to make sure that that actually still works. So we got lucky this time. I'm not sure if that's going to happen in all the cases, but this time we got lucky. So I'm going to go ahead and swap that over. So what I've been doing to get these pins out is I'll stick the smallest drill bit that I have in both sides of the terminal, and it'll disengage the clips. I'll show you guys once I get one out, but it's pretty simple. They come out pretty easy. Alright, so you guys can hopefully see what I'm doing there. Sticking 2 drill bits in there and just pushing them all the way in until they disengage the clips on the pin. And once that is the case, pin should just pull out. So that can be inserted into the correct spot, which is gonna be pin 11, should be the one right next to the red wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that in until you hear a little click right there. And that's about all that I need to do to make sure that that amp turn-on signal still works. Getting the last few wires shrunken up. There are a few more things that I am not quite sure about. This harness has a wire for an antenna. I think it says power antenna, where this car didn't come with a power antenna. So I don't think that I'm gonna have to plug that in, but we'll see if I can get away with that. This radio that I'm installing doesn't actually have illumination in it, so I won't need to plug in the illumination wire. And also, since I'm not installing the backup camera just yet, I'm not going to need to plug that one in. So pretty much for all the spare wires, I'm just using another piece of heat shrink and just shrinking it up and squeezing the end so that it's nice and tight. But as far as I'm concerned, this is my completed wiring harness. So these will plug into the radio, these will plug into where the old radio plugged into, and then this will just chill in there. I'm probably going to find a place to mount it, but I'm going to go ahead and put this all in the car and see if it works. Alright, so at this point, I've got 3 plugs to plug in. I've got the main one, then I've got the 2 that'll go into the back of the head unit. And these things are absolutely cheap as shit. These connectors are garbage. That's ridiculous. That's definitely one place where they're saving money on these things, because those connectors are trash. So then I'm gonna grab my antenna wire that I will insert into the back of the radio also. And we can turn the key, see if it's gonna work. Oh, hey. There's a welcome screen. Okay, nice. Whoa! Hey, it works! No shit. Whoa! There we go. There we go, baby. Hey, that's actually kind of sick. Nice. It honestly... like, it doesn't even sound bad. Like, for $45, I'm not mad about that sound. That's sick. That's so funny. Alright, well, I'm gonna unplug this and I'm gonna get this all into the actual dash kit and let's install this thing. Alright, so as I'm trying to throw the dash kit together, I've run into a slight issue. If you can see, the fucking knob on the radio hits on the dash kit. That sucks. So, I think the only thing I can do is Dremel out a little bit of the dash kit and clearance it for the knob, which is unfortunate because it's not going to look great probably. But there's not really much else I can do. Other than that, it looks like it'll mount up. I might have to use the mounting brackets for it, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll see. I'm gonna see if I can fuck with it a little bit and then get it to work. It has taken me about half an hour, but I finally got the radio mounted. So I'll show you guys the issues that I was having. You can see this volume knob interferes super hard with this front faceplate, so I had to file out that section of the faceplate to get it to fit. Not to mention the fact that on the back side, every single mounting hole for the radio didn't fit into a factory location on the mounting bracket, so I had to file some and I had to drill 2 new holes to get it to fit. But I got it mounted and it's nice and sturdy in the nice position that I wanted in. This can go in the car now. I think that next time I install a radio, I'm probably not gonna go with a cheap piece of shit like this because honestly, it's made the process like infinitely harder than it needs to be. But I mean, for a first time and a little fix just to get me by, it'll work. I'm not stoked about it though. We'll see how it is in the car though. So I'm gonna go put this in and give it a full test to see how everything works. It's official, guys. She's in. Okay, so it looks like you just connect to it. There's no process. It's always searching apparently. Dude, this is so stupid. Why does it... oh my god. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this is kind of shit. So at the end of the day, I think that I can recommend the crimpers, the crimp connections, the install kit, the wiring, everything for it, except the head unit. The head unit was trash. I'm not gonna lie to you, that shit's straight trash. It's honestly pretty embarrassing because like there's so much dumb shit. Like, okay, so you can't use the Bluetooth, like it won't say playing when you go into the main menus. So you can only be on the Bluetooth screen. I still haven't figured out how to get the phone pairing to work so that I can like actually like put my screen on the head unit screen. So I'm not sure how that all works. I think that if you're willing to deal with the shit ass menu system and like all the dumb shit that comes with this radio, it's all right for the price. It's not bad. If you got any money laying around, I would wait for a real radio though. But yeah, install kit, all the rest of the stuff is good. I really enjoyed it. The only reason that the actual dash kit didn't work very well was because of the way that the radio was designed, but I don't think that that would be the same thing on any other radio, as long as it'll fit the doubled in hole. I'm pretty sure that pretty much everything else should. I don't understand why this one didn't, but I mean, it's a $45 radio. I wasn't really expecting much, to be honest, but I mean, it'll get me through. It's better than listening to the radio. That's all I can say. Like, at least now I can have my Spotify going and I can listen to my own music. But yeah, so I mean, let me know what you guys think. This thing, honestly, like, I don't know how long it's gonna last. We'll see. I might get tired of it, but it sounds decent. So, I mean, that's all that really matters. But, yeah, I'll see you guys later.